Ole Miss fans know who this is. Romaro Miller, the quarterback of the Rebels, just around the turn of the millennium, 6,000 passing yards, 43 touchdowns, led the Rebels to 3 straight bowl games. Ro, you were just back in town a few weekends ago. You'll be in town. It feels like you're always at the Rebel games, which is a good thing to think about. But you were here as our Letterman's Lounge legend a few weeks ago. Got to lead the team through the Walk of Champions, locking the vault. What was that experience like to see all that love again here for you here in 2021?
Man, it was a great experience. I told somebody afterwards, I didn't know I was going to have the access that I had that weekend. I think that Friday night we was able to eat dinner with the team, and that Saturday morning we ate breakfast, and then we did the Walk of Champions. If I would have known I was going to do all that, I would have brought my mom and my dad just so they can experience it. And actually, one of my teammates, he's coming up the Liberty game. And I told him, I called and gave him a heads. I'm like, look, man, you're going to enjoy it. I said, I know we've done it before, but just to see the smile on my wife's face as she was going down through there, I'm like, make sure you take your kids, make sure you take your mom, your dad, make sure they get to experience that experience, because, just think a parent, they don't get to eat with the team and talk to the coaches behind the scenes like we used to back in the day type of deal. So it just meant a lot to me and my family. And just wish they would have told me I was going to have the access to invite more people.
Well, you get to see the energy, though, the palpable energy that's surrounding this program here this year under Coach Kiffin, with the players. What have you thought about these last 2 seasons under Coach Kiffin? Again, you always feel like you're either at the game or on Twitter supporting this program. Yeah. So what have you thought about this ride over the last 2 years?
Man, it's been exciting. Last year we started off not on the best of notes, but as you can see, the team kind of developed as the season was going along. And then coming into the year, I don't know. I figured we would be going 3-1 after Bama. But now you look at the way the SEC sets up, and we got a chance, if barring injuries, we got a chance to do some special things. One, Matt got a chance to win the Heisman. 2, we got a chance to go 11-1. Saying that, we got to get it healthy, and hopefully we get healthy. We definitely can do that. Back to we talking about the Grove. I'm going to say this right now. We did the Walk of Champion. It wasn't the same. So whenever COVID ends, I'm going to tweet Keith Carter and tell Keith Carter move that freaking gate, so we can get that feeling of chest bumping walking down the Grove. It was just different when people like 10 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other one. So I already told somebody, I said, as soon as the season ends, look for that tweet to come out. Move the gates, and that's going to be our hashtag.
Awesome. Well, I've been a big fan since you were in high school. Playing at Shannon High, and just you guys were one of the first kind of air it out teams. I've got my modified Romaro Miller 11, and then 10, just because we're honoring that guy. Whoever that is. But I did a modified jersey just for Roe for this. Because 11's my guy, man. You're one of the first guys that that, like, as far as recruiting goes, I was having a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he was like, man, Roe was a big time get for us from Shannon, because he had all these offers from everywhere. And so we were just having that conversation. But the thing that we started talking about was, you threw the ball 30, 40 times a game in high school, which was just, you just didn't see that, right? Like, that wasn't a thing during that generation. How much fun would you have had playing in this Kiffin kind of Levy offense?
Man, you just don't even know, because like I said, back when I was in high school, we ran 4 or 5 wide the entire game. And the first time that I actually played with a the tailback, was when I came to Ole Miss. We had Rufus French, he was a tight end, but he was quote unquote a receiver, because he was just so fast. And then when Cut came in, that was the first time in my life that I played with a fullback, and the tailback and I were the tight end. So we came in high school, we were wide open. And Ole Miss, we kind of got away from it a little bit my first year, and then my 3rd and 4th year, we really got away from it. But like, just to see where the game is going now, this is a quarterback dream. I just remember the first time I was down there, when Coach Free was there, I went down, and I was just sitting in the quarterback meeting room. He said that his quarterback should go 70%. And I looked at him like, what the heck are you talking about 70%? Because back when we played 60%, you're all pro. But, you got to look at a lot of the throws they're throwing now. They'll throw a wide receiver screen, 5-yard hitches and stuff like that. And it's just a lot different. But this quarterback dream put up a lot of numbers, so it would be fun to play in a system like this.
You talked about it a little bit just with Matt having the opportunity to win the Heisman, but what are your thoughts on him from a quarterback perspective and kind of getting to see him week in and week out? You're here a lot and come to a lot of games, watch a lot of games, go to on the road to a lot of games. If you follow Roe on Twitter, you see he's at everything when the Rebels are playing. Roe's there. So, what just your thoughts on Corral and kind of his season that he's having right now?
Man, I think my favorite players at Ole Miss, I've always said, is one of them is Jarrell Poe. It's just because of the way that he continued to push to get to school at Ole Miss. And then the other one is Rufus French for other reasons. But I think Matt Corral is, he's on my list. And not saying for what he's doing on the field. The first time I met Matt, I think it was his freshman year, and he wasn't happy when I saw him on the square. And just to see development and the changes of him as a person, that's the thing that I'm just more excited about him. And once you change as a person and you can see the leadership skills and all that stuff, and his game is just taking off to another level. I could see his development last year. I told somebody last year, even the bowl game, they were talking about Matt, and I said I could see his growth during the season because he came out that Arkansas game, he was slinging that sucker around the field, and he was throwing interception, just didn't even care. But later on in the year, I remember he came back in the LSU game, he threw a lot of interception, but in the fourth quarter, he kind of said, you know what, I can't do this. And then he kind of stopped in the fourth quarter. And then you go down to the Mississippi State game where they made him read the field, check the ball down. He didn't force it. And then going over to the bowl game, he pretty much did the exact same thing, just take what the defense gave him. So I could see the development from him from the Arkansas game last year into the bowl game. And he just carried over and just took it to another, he's taking it to another level this year.
Yeah, talking about great quarterback play, and you saw Brandon's T-shirt if you're watching this on YouTube, the 11 and the 10, of course, highlighting Eli Manning here this weekend. And I have to bring up Roe's Wikipedia page, which I found funny. It says Miller set many records at Ole Miss, but had the misfortune of being immediately followed by Eli Manning. I hope you didn't edit your own Wikipedia page there, Roe. Misfortune? Man, come on, man.
Man, you know what? I tell you, there's one thing I hate Eli for. He didn't give me enough time, let me enjoy it a little bit more. But hey, I tell people my running joke is, I'm the only guy to probably in the history to keep a 2-time MVP quarterback on the bench. Not saying, but I also come back and say the coach that later did that got fired. So I don't know if that was smart, but no, man. Like I said, it was fun to have those records, and I was in the top 1 or 2 for a while. And then now she see like every quarterback that we bring through now is moving me on down the list. So I don't know, man. It was fun to be there. I took pictures of myself in the top 1 or 2, and every time I move down, I take pictures just so I can remember the memories of back when I was up there.
I'm glad that was your response, because I knew that wasn't a fair assessment to what was. I'll go on there and edit it for you, because realistically, Ro, you're one of the most beloved former Rebels of all time. When you sit back and think about your college career and the impact you had on Rebel fans, how does that make you feel?
It just makes me feel good. Just make me feel I made the right decision by coming to school up over at Ole Miss. People have been good to me. Hopefully, I've been good to the people. Kind of carry yourself in the right manner, and hopefully, people just show you love. And hopefully, the quarterbacks that we bringing in now, hopefully they just carried on the legacy of the position. I'm big on quarterbacks, and I tell somebody every position on the school can suck, but our quarterback, it better be good, just because it just means so much to me. So if we're gonna lose a game, we can't lose with the quarterbacks. You let Deuce and his running back groups lose the game for us, not the quarterbacks.
So the funny thing about it is, so I grew up, my dad went to Mississippi State, had a brother went to Mississippi State, had a brother went to Tennessee. But one of my best friends growing up was a huge Ole Miss fan. And so we used to watch games, and I'd go to his house and watch games. And I never really had a natural connection, but I do remember one of the times where I kind of started liking Ole Miss more than just watching their games was the throwback pass between you and Deuce. Right. In the rain and the touch. And I was like, well, that's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I started just the other day, I was talking to some buddies and started reminiscing about those plays and those teams. And you came in highly touted, we talked about earlier, and you had the opportunity to go to a lot of different places, right? And Alabama being one of those. And I think if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, your kind of final two came down to Alabama and Ole Miss, and you ultimately chose Ole Miss. What was that kind of thought process, and why was that the ultimate deciding factor?
You know, at one time, me and Terrence Metcalf, we went on our official visit to Alabama, and they took us in the Barry Bryant Museum. And I never forget, I looked at Metcalf and I told Metcalf, I said, "Man, I'm coming to Alabama." And Metcalf said, "Bro, if you're coming to Alabama, I'm coming also." So we leave Alabama, and I privately committed to Alabama. And I told him, I said, "Look, I need to go to Ole Miss just to take a visit because it's my home state school." And once I came over to Ole Miss on a visit, I kind of changed my mind. And I just thought, you know what, I just want to build something at home inside of the state of Mississippi. And the scary part about it is me and Metcalf our last discussion, we both was going to Alabama. And so once I committed, it would be 4 cell phones and stuff like that. And so the next weekend I went to Ole Miss, he went to Tennessee. And I changed my mind and I committed publicly to Ole Miss. But I didn't know if Metcalf was going to follow me to Ole Miss, or was he going to continue and go to Alabama as we talked about. But a couple of days later, a week later, out of the blue, he had his press conference. He committed to go to Ole Miss also, and he followed me over. So, but it was a good deal, man. But like I said, it was just something that we would just want to. I just want to start something at home that I can be proud of, and hopefully we laid the foundation for that.
And you're talking about it now, but that recruiting class, was it 97 you came in? Is that right?
97. Yeah, 97.
Yeah. So that recruiting class had a ton of guys that Ole Miss fans kind of, lives in their minds of different guys. You talk about Metcalf, you talk about just the amount of role players, but also guys that ultimately ended up being stars in that class. You could list them forever, but that's a class that really kind of changed Ole Miss football, and I think put us on another level of, okay, now we can compete with really anybody in the SEC. Can you talk about kind of that class and what you feel like you guys meant and the legacy you guys left?
Man, I'll tell you, in class we had a lot of star power. Like I say, with myself and Metcalf, I think we were like 2 to 3 players in the state. But then we had up the top 10 to 12 players, like Deuce McAllister, Joe Gunn. Well, Joe, he did a prep school type deal. Ken Lucas, so we had some studs in that class. And the thing about that class is even our lower recruited guys turned out to be some of the best guys on the team, and actually left Ole Miss, and a lot of those guys played a long time. So it was just one of the things that we were just blessed, and everything just came together. And to this day, we're still friends this week, still friends now, and I'm just looking forward to hopefully seeing a lot of them this weekend in Oxford.
Yeah, I saw your tweet about that. You highlighted that there's a lot of guys you haven't talked to or seen in a while that you're excited to see. But who are some of the guys that on a maybe day-to-day basis you're keeping up with? They're getting texts during Ole Miss games or during an NFL game that you're hollering at every so often?
Man, quite naturally, it's the guys. I tell people I'm close to everybody that was on the team with me, but I'm extremely close to the guys that came in with me. I kind of tell them it's like a fraternity. The guys that came in with me, we got our head shaved together. We had to sing songs together, all that type of stuff. So I'm close to those guys as you can be. I'm cool with everybody else, but just the guy that went through the hazing part of it with me, those are the ones. So when you talk about Deuce, Terrence Metcalf, Ken Lucas, we all got group texts and stuff like that. So we always texting and talking about, man, we need to do this, we should do that type of deal on the games and stuff like that. So, but it's good, then as I get older, me and Jarrell Poe, we talk a lot more than what we did back then. And actually, he just called me 2 to 3 minutes ago. We got to coordinate how we're gonna hit this Grove tomorrow. So we're gonna take the Grove hopefully wide open tomorrow.
That's awesome. So when you were here, you had an interesting kind of split, right? So you had a coach, that recruited you and you committed to, and then you finished out your career with a different coach. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but What was that like? So for the fans, that was a really hard kind of time just because of, the commitment to the program, and it was headed in the right direction. And then you have this kind of upheaval in the middle, and it was tough on fans. But from a team perspective and the starting quarterback perspective, what was that like for the players? I mean, I just from the outside looking in, I think that's got to be tough. But what was the download? Tell us the kind of the nitty gritty. Like, what was that process like,
Man,
and how did you guys handle it?
man, it was different because back then we all chose to come to school for Coach Tuberville and his staff, and we truly feel that we had something special rolling at that time. And just to have that change in the middle of it when we was actually, I think, going into our prime, because I think I was a sophomore, Deuce was a sophomore, Ken Lucas was a sophomore, Terrence Med was a sophomore. So we was gearing up for our junior senior year to be the year that we could make that run at the SEC title. And next thing I know is you started hearing rumors about Auburn and him possibly leaving, going over to Auburn. And next day it was true. Just it was different. I guess the leaders on the team, we said, you know what, we still going to stick this out. Nobody left, everybody stayed, and we tried to put our head down and just keep going forward. We didn't get to where we wanted to be. We got close, but just no cigar. But hopefully, like I said, we built the last thing our legacy at the university. So we didn't get the championship, but hopefully we laid the foundation.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. And if you think about what football did for you in your career, it took you a lot of places, from Mississippi to the NFL, 3 seasons with the Vikings, to the Canadian Football League, NFL Europa on the resume. For you, what was most special about your pro career?
I tell people, man, one thing about being a guy from Shannon, Mississippi, I was 21 years old. And when I was 21 years old, I was traveling in the places that I never thought I would travel. When I came out, I went to the Vikings. And back then in the off season, if you was like a number 3 quarterback, they would send you to NFL Europe. So that off season, I lived in Dusseldorf, Germany, but we traveled to Berlin, Amsterdam, Scotland, Barcelona, all those places at 21. And then I came back and I went back to the Vikings and went to training camp, and came back. We had a different coach and I got released. But then I went up to Canada probably at 23, 24. And I played in Toronto, played in Ottawa. But once again, we traveled all over the place. We traveled, like I said, we traveled all over the place. Vancouver, Winnipeg, Montreal, all these places that I would never go probably again. So I tell people, man, one thing about football is taking me places that growing up I never thought I would be. I never had a chance to visit. And if you look at me on Twitter now, my biggest thing is I love to travel. So when I get back from a trip, I'm trying to plan another trip. and I think a lot of it has to do with I was traveling so much at a young age, and it kind of opened my eyes up to, hey man, let's enjoy life.
Well, I think some of the places you got to travel, and I'm very interested in this intel because I'm a non-Mississippian. I've been here for 5 football seasons, so I feel like I'm still learning things about the rivalry dynamics for these teams that Ole Miss face off against. And I think everybody knows the Egg Bowl kind of ranks up there, but there's some other ones that are pretty savage rivalries that I don't think get the love nationally that they do for Ole Miss fans. And we hate dating these interviews, but obviously LSU's this weekend, that one ranks up there pretty highly in the history of college football. Arkansas, man, that's gotten vicious over the last couple of years. So for you, during your playing time, who were you disliking? Give me your rankings of the Ole Miss rivalries, of the teams that you were like, all right, I know you want to beat everybody, but we have to beat these guys this Saturday.
I would say it's Mississippi State and LSU. 51% Mississippi State, 49% LSU. I mean, it's literally that close. Mississippi State, just for the fact it's the home state school, and where I'm from, I'm 50 minutes from Starkville, 50 minutes from Oxford. Half of my family, they Bulldogs, and so every year somebody get to talk crap. Hopefully we get to do it again this year. But LSU, I mean, there's nothing like playing against LSU, man. When they play that fight song, it just give me goosebumps and chills. And hey, man, let's scrap up, let's go. I remember my first time down there in '97. That was the year they had the band on the sideline when we was getting ready to go to the locker room. And I just remember the seniors, they almost like look like they're ready to fight the band. They were just so wound up about it, man. But they just that rivalry, man. It's just intense. Then it could be Ole Miss could be we could be 1-10, they could be 10-1, or vice versa. And man, it always come down to the end. I hope it's not that way this weekend because I don't want to deal with it. But I'm looking forward to having a good, enjoyable game though.
So when you look back on it now, when you're reminiscing with buddies or whatever, or texting people, what are the one or two memories that stick out in your head that you go like, this is a memory I'll never forget about playing here?
I will never forget senior night. We played Mississippi State. It was the night before the game, and all senior nights they have like a lot of highlight film of all the seniors while the team is in there. And that night they played Phil Collins in the Air Tonight, and man, just the vibe in that room that night, there was no way we was going to lose to Mississippi State that night. Like that song and those videos, it hit the right tone for us pregame. I mean, the night before the game, and pretty much once the game started, we knew that we was going to win that game.
That's awesome. So tell me, you catch us up. Obviously, you get done playing and you kind of, had to figure out now what you're going to do in life. And now you're a very successful insurance agent in Olive Branch, DeSoto County. But catch us up. Like, what wife, kids? What do you do now? What does the Romaro Miller family do now for fun?
And Romaro, just like I said, I enjoy life, man. I love to travel. My wife, and I have a daughter who's 4. She haven't been to the Grove yet. Hopefully, we may get her down there to Liberty. It kind of put me in a tough spot, man. Because when I hit the Grove, man, I'm in party mode, So I'm going to get her down there one game. It got to probably be one of these non-SEC games. But no, man. Like I said, life is good. We up here in Olive Branch, got the insurance agent, State Farm going. And so everything is good. Everything is good.
Awesome. Great to hear, Ro. And obviously we're so thankful you spent this time with us today. And everything we said was truly sincere. One of the most beloved former Rebels, not just quarterbacks, but all-time players in Ole Miss history. So we're excited we got a chance to catch up with you and get your insight on rivalries and Matt Corral and Coach Kiffin. And we know we're going to see you here at the Vaught, not just this Saturday, but plenty of other Saturdays moving forward. As you see, Brandon gave 110% on this interview.
Yes.
Romaro Miller.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, man.
Brandon, give 110% in the stadium tomorrow night.
Don't worry, I will.
All right, man. You guys have a good one.
Thanks, Ro.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.